I need to tell you something very important. If you want to win at chess, you do not attack your opponent. And I will show you why here. Because going for an early attack is one of the biggest mistakes that so many players make. And that is why they are losing so many games. So what you should do is just follow this simple strategy. First, we want to put a pawn in the center. It doesn't matter, D pawn or E pawn, pick one of them. And then once that's achieved, we want to develop our pieces and we want to castle. It is literally that simple. You do not need to follow any opening theory. You can if you want, but you do not need to memorize anything. We should just play very simple chess. We put the pawns in the center. We are looking to develop our pieces. It is also important that when our opponent makes a move, we think about what they are doing before we make our own move. And that will avoid that we make any blunders. So why is this bishop here? We have to ask two questions. First, what is it doing? I even draw arrows to display this during my games. It's spinning my knight. The second thing is, what was it doing previously? It was protecting this pawn. So now I have two pieces of information that I can use. My knight is pinned and this pawn is weak. So that is something we might be able to use in the future. So what I will do is I will protect my knight with my other knight. So that way it is protected, and if they take, I can always just recapture. And many players would immediately play pawn to h3. But I try to avoid moving pawns as much as possible because pawn moves are often mistakes. They are things that create long-term weaknesses. So if I can solve it any other way that's not pushing a pawn, that is what I will do. The only exception I make is my E pawn, D pawn, and C pawn. These you can use whenever you want. So again, they just developed a knight. Okay, what is it doing? Not much. My turn, I am going to develop a bishop. So I put my bishop here on b5. Okay. And they attack me. Fine. So I realize they attack me, so I need to do something about this first. I cannot continue with my plan. And what I am going to do is I am going to take their knight. And the reason why I do this is this doubles up their pawns. So they now have doubled pawns. These pawns are in front of each other, so the back pawn cannot protect the pawn at the front. And this is already a weakness. And this is our entire strategy. We just want to focus on playing solid moves. We want to focus on not blundering anything. And we are waiting for the opponent to make a mistake. And believe me, they will make a mistake. They always do. And when they make a mistake, we are going to abuse that mistake. We are going to try to win material. We will just turn it into an endgame, and that is how we win the game. We will never go for anything too spectacular here. Okay, so they have doubled pawns. My turn, well, we still haven't castled yet, so let's just get that out of the way. That is very important. Okay, they take. We were already prepared. We had this knight ready there. And then here they play queen to d6. Okay. And you should follow this opening strategy that I just showed you until you get into the middle game. And then you need to switch your thinking. And in the middle game, we need to follow a very simple framework. First, we need to look at every possible check that we could have. We have no checks. Then we need to look at every possible capture that we could play. We have no captures. And then we need to look at every possible threat or attack that we could play. And what I mean with that is that if we have a way to threaten something, maybe we could threaten to win a piece, threaten to win a pawn, that is what we want to do. And going through this CCT, checks, captures, threats, this is what will help us to find opportunities. So if your opponent makes a mistake, check, capture, threat, this will show you the mistake. This is how you solve puzzles. This will help you to find the tactics in the games. So CCT, and if there is no CCT, we go to the final step, which is the O for optimization. And optimization is what we are going to have to do here, I think, because we have nothing with the CCT. Optimization means we either want to do something with our pieces that are still on the back rank, or we want to play with the E, D, and C pawns, as I have said before. What I am going to do here is I'm going to look at my back rank pieces. So I want to get this bishop into the game. I have two options. I can either go to D2 or I can play B3 and I can develop the bishop this way. A good question is which one is the best. I think they are both playable. In this case, I will play B3 because I think it will be more interesting to eventually have this bishop facing towards the enemy king side. So this is one of those exceptions where yes, I do push a pawn, but we have a clear reason. But even with this pawn push, you can see we already have a bit of a weakness there, and they are immediately already using a knight to attack that square. So that we have to think about that. They move the knight. As always, pause first and think about their move. Force yourself to do this. What are they doing? Okay, they are attacking the square, so I'm going to develop my bishop, and that solves the problem. they push the pawn. And you have to keep doing this CCTO every single time it is your turn. The good thing is, of course, we didn't have checks before, we don't have checks now, we didn't have any captures before, we still don't have any captures, and we didn't really have any threats before. I think that is still pretty much the case, we still don't have any threats. So we are back to the optimization stage. Again, look at the pieces, we have to move one of them. Well, let's move this rook, let's just move this rook, because if we move this rook, we might have that pawn to c4 push, which will help us to open up the position a little bit. They play f6, okay, a bit strange, but I think they are fighting for the center in some way. I don't really see trouble, so we are going to continue with pawn to c4. And they are moving the king. That's very creative, but the funny thing is it's probably not even that bad, because the position is quite close, we are almost in an endgame, so yeah, there's not really anything wrong with that. Okay, so the king has moved. We definitely need to do the CCTO from the beginning, because yes, we have checks, but they both lose a knight, so no, I won't play it. Captures, yes, we have captures, but it is important with the checks and captures that you realize it's not because we have a check or a capture that we should play it. For example, this capture, it's just an equal capture, and I would even say it's less than equal, because we are helping them to undouble the pawns. So don't just capture or don't just check if there is no follow-up. That's not the plan. Okay, so CC doesn't have anything. The next question is, do we have a threat? Do we have any attack that we could play? Well, we could play pawn to c5, I think. It's a small threat, it's a one-move threat. It attacks the queen has to move, okay. Not really that important. So I'm going to go to optimize stage. How can we optimize? Well, this queen is still on the starting square. Let's just move it. That's the only thing we need to do. Let's just move the queen out of the way, okay. And they play bishop to e7. All right. Okay, our turn to move. No checks that we haven't looked at, no captures. This time I am going to see if maybe I can try to win a pawn there. So if I take, and if they take with the c pawn, I could take on c7, and I think we might just be winning a pawn there, honestly. But of course they could also take with this pawn, and I think then we have queen c6. So my opponent might have just made a mistake here. I don't really see why this shouldn't work. We can just capture, they recapture, we have to again double check what are they doing. Okay, we didn't miss anything, and then we are going to play queen takes c6. And okay, they just trade, so we can trade and take with the rook. So I hope you can already see by now, this is so simple. We just follow the strategy. We don't do anything complicated, and our opponent already blundered the pawn. And yes, if you follow this strategy, we focus on not blundering ourselves, and I promise you, your opponent will blunder. And as long as you go through the CCT, you will see their blunders. If they didn't blunder, CCT will not give you a solution. So then you go to the step O, optimize. And then eventually you give them a new opportunity to blunder. So this is just perfect. We are already winning. We are already up a pawn. Okay, they are attacking. I don't really see trouble. So still, we have no good checks. We have no captures. We have no threats. So I'm just looking to optimize. That was our final piece that was not yet in the game. So that is why I used it. Okay, they played the rook here. All right, so I just keep going through this. My opponent here is trying to be very defensive because they are pretty much losing and because they are already down a pawn, so they are trying to figure out a way to hold everything together. Now we come to a very important moment. This is quite high level. We have no good checks. Well, we could always blunder a rook if we want, or a knight. We have no good captures. Every capture also loses material, and no threats. And for the optimized stage, you might now say, well, we have moved every single piece once already, so there is nothing to optimize, but that's false. Once you get to this stage, we will just start shuffling around the pieces and improving them. So I am now looking at every single piece just to see which one could I potentially improve upon. Well, the rooks are fine, they are doing a good job here. The bishop, I don't know, it's not doing too much, but there's also not much I can do with it. The knight is completely useless because it can never go forwards, it will not go to the edge of the board, and it cannot go to the center. So the optimized stage is telling me that we should move the knight and we should try to reroute the knight, which basically means we want to move the knight around the board and see if we can improve it. Maybe swing it over to that side of the board and try to go grab some pawns. Very strange, they move the knight here. I don't know what's the plan with that. I am just going to attack it, and let's just see what they do. Okay, they just go back. Bit of a useless maneuvering by them, but it's fine, nothing going on. So we can just continue, and I'm continuing with my optimization. I want to get my knight to the other side of the board there. Okay. I think they just blundered. Maybe. I'm not sure. Because I'm going in my mind through checks. We have non-captures. No threats. Well, we can threaten the knight with pawn to f3, and it's not super obvious to me what this knight is going to do. It's almost completely trapped. You can see it's almost completely trapped. I don't know if we even had that on a previous move there. I'm not sure. Maybe we did. This shows that you have to do CCT every single time. Because now the knight is here, and the question is, can we threaten it again? Yes, we can play h4. And the knight is stuck. They blundered the knight. I think they even blundered the knight in move before. This shows you that you have to do the CCT every single time. I skipped it one turn, and I missed the fact that I could have won the knight earlier. It doesn't matter in the end, but yeah, that's important. My opponent is trying to do a counterattack here. I will definitely not capture this and help them to open up the position and attack my king. I will just push the pawn, and that makes me happy because now everything is just still locked, and I'm even going to push this one to f4. And this is looking ridiculous because they are trying to attack, but this pawn is a traitor. It's basically a white pawn at this point. They are just blocking in their own rook. Okay, so again, we have to continue with our plan, and my initial plan was, well, again, CCT, but there is nothing, I think, to play knight c5, and knight c5 helps us to potentially win another pawn, so that is what I am looking at. They are being aggressive here, so we definitely need to watch out what's going on here. So there are a couple of things we could do. I think we could definitely try to just take another pawn. I will just do it. There are probably other things that we can do as well, but this is fine. They play a very interesting move. They go for an intermezzo move, an in-between move, taking the knight, but it doesn't work because I can just take the rook, and then eventually I can take here. I think the only thing is that eventually they will get their rook to the a2 square. Let me have a look there. I think if I take this bishop, they will just have rook takes a2. Probably it's fine anyways. We pick up another pawn and then I move the bishop. Yeah, I think that looks fine. But we have to be a little bit careful still with what's happening here with this, this pawn. The good thing is, following this strategy, we are by now just up a full piece. We are basically up the bishop. So even if you do make some minor mistakes, it's not really going to cost you the game anyways. Okay. But my opponent is really trying to put up some great counterplay here, I have to say. They are now trying to win this pawn, and there's actually not that much that I can do about it. Okay. So we are now in an endgame, and in the endgame the rules really change. You can even somewhat forget about the CCT, although it can still help you to find tactics. But in the endgame, I am more so focused on trading everything. Because if we trade everything, that means that the rook will be gone. And let's say that these pawns are gone, 4 pawns each. While in the ending position, we still have this left. We still have the bishop and the pawn. And that is what we want. We just want a simple winning endgame. And this is a simple winning endgame. So in the endgame, I'm mostly looking for trades. So I'm just going to play some moves here to try to open everything up and try to trade. So I played this e4 push, basically sacking a pawn so I could get my bishop into the game. And now with my bishop into the game, I'm looking to see if I can win those remaining pawns. Here we have an option of trading the rooks and also blundering our bishop. But we need to evaluate those types of positions as well. And I really like those types of moves. Some people don't like when I play these, and I sometimes get hate comments for them, but I think these are incredibly important moves to consider, potentially giving away material, because all we want to do is we want to simplify the endgame. That is what we want, because we want a simple winning endgame. But we do need to evaluate, are we winning this endgame? And to do that, we need to do a quick calculation. So pretty much this is forced. And the king is there. And I'm going to show you how you can calculate this in a real life game when you cannot use the analysis tools. So we do this, and you can draw the arrows, and you know that that is the ending position. Then the question is, who is winning that endgame? Well, it depends on passed pawns and also king activity. Both of us have 2 passed pawns. I have these 2, and they have these 2. So the passed pawns are equal. The king activity, my king is very close to picking up a pawn. So in that endgame, it's going to be 3 pawns for white versus 2 pawns for black. And we have 2 passed pawns. And that means that we will win that endgame if, we have to calculate this as well, if we can prevent this from promotion. So how do you calculate something like this? Very easily. We just do this, and that's quite easy. You can even mark this on the board. Basically, the king will be there. And then the question is, if we go up and they push, and we take the pawn and they push, can we still stop them in time? That is the question. Can we still stop them in time? And to figure this out, we need to know where the pawn is at, and then we need to use the rule of the square. And that basically means that this is the square the pawn will be. So we are going to go down to the right 2, up 2, and then here we have 1 to the left, and then our square is closed. And if our king can step into that square, that means we will be able to stop the pawn. And in that position, if you remember, our king just grabbed that pawn. Yes, we have 2 potential ways that we can step into the square, so we will be able to stop that pawn. And I was also able to see this far ahead, even just after calculating this. Basically, because, well, first of all, it's white to move, but again, you can do the same thing. You can draw the square of the pawn. This time, it is a pretty huge square, I have to say. It's this square, and the question is just, is our king within that square? Most definitely, we are within the square. So we do have the time to just go and pick up the pawn and then rush over to stop it. So I am going to play this move, rook e7, just to demonstrate that in a real game, this is what you do. This is how you play. Because this guarantees us quite an easy win. And if you keep the rooks on the board, you might blunder your bishop, you might blunder a checkmate and still lose the game. They are not pushing the pawn, because if they do, we would simply be winning that pawn. We would be grabbing that pawn. And then from this position, I told you that since we have the 2 passed pawns, we will be the one that is promoting first. Because our king can always just step in front of that pawn and make sure it cannot promote. And this king is way too slow to stop 2 pawns from promoting at the same time. But there's only one move here, I think, that wins the game. If we play this, they have king c4, and the problem is that they can pick up our pawn and also support their pawn for promotion. So that is not good. And this pawn is also helping. It's helping to prevent them from coming closer. So I think the good move that we should play here is to play pawn to f5. Pawn to f5. And the reason why is, well, first of all, they cannot come closer. And if they attack the pawn, we are going to push it again. They have to take, and we are in time to grab this pawn, and then we will just be able to promote that one. Because we can just push, and they have to waste a lot of time going back and forth with the king, and then eventually pushing. So this is, I think, the only way here that we are going to win the endgame, which is to use our passed pawn, try to push it, force them to take. We can just go in, we can grab that pawn for free. All right. I can see that they will be too slow, and there's also an easy way to calculate this. We have 5 moves to make. They have 1, 2. The king has to take and go back. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So yeah, it's 5 versus 7, and we have the first move. So pretty much you can pre-move this entire thing and go ahead and make a queen. Here we have a queen versus pawn endgame. You do need to know how to win this one. This is quite an easy one because we can blockade the pawn, and that's instantly winning. If you think that some of the things that I showed here with this endgame are too complicated and you might have messed this up in your own game, well, then it's very important that you go to my website, pegasuschess.com, because there are so many free lessons, basically an entirely free course on endgame. And it teaches how you can do all of this and many more things. And now we just have a very simple checkmate here with queen takes h3. So please try this out in your own games and drop a comment to let me know how it went.